Today, we explore a disturbing case from Rochester, Minnesota, in February 2015, right after the Super Bowl. This quiet town was rocked by a shocking story of obsession, control, and murder. Larry Harrison, a 42-year-old man, managed the popular Applebee's in Rochester, Minnesota. He was known for his warm and friendly nature, a devoted Minnesota Vikings fan. Larry loved watching their games. He lived with his wife, Lauren, and their teenage son in a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood where they had lived for many years. Larry's family was his top priority. Larry and Lauren had been married for over 15 years. They met in college and quickly fell in love. Larry was a devoted father to their son, Brian, always making time to help with homework or coach his little league team. Larry's friendly nature made him a beloved figure in Rochester. He often volunteered at the local food bank and took part in community cleanup events. In the days before his death, Larry was busy organizing a community event at his restaurant to celebrate the end of the football season. He aimed to bring people together for a big feast, featuring everyone's favorite dishes and highlights from the game. The Super Bowl had just occurred on February 1, 2015, with the New England Patriots defeating the Seattle Seahawks. Larry was excited about the event and had been working extra hours to ensure everything was perfect. Larry also had personal plans. He was excited about a family trip to the Mall of America, where they planned to visit the amusement park and shop at their favorite stores. Larry was a simple man who found happiness in everyday moments with his family and friends. In summary, Larry Harrison was a man who deeply valued his family, community, and work. He was well-loved and had a promising future full of dreams and plans. His sudden death was a shock to everyone who knew him, leaving a void that could never be filled. On the morning of February 8, 2015, around 7:30 a.m., Lauren Harrison discovered her husband, Larry, dead in their kitchen. It was a cold, snowy day in Rochester, Minnesota. Lauren had risen early to prepare breakfast. As she entered the kitchen, Lauren was confronted with a horrifying scene. Larry's body was lying on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. He had been stabbed multiple times. The sight was both shocking and terrifying. Lauren immediately screamed for help, and her cries woke the neighbors, who quickly came over to see what was happening. One of the neighbors, Mary Benedictus, who lived next door, ran over to check on Lauren. Upon seeing the gruesome scene, she quickly called 911. Mary later described feeling a mix of fear and disbelief. Having known Larry for years, Mary couldn't believe that something so horrific could happen. It felt like a nightmare, she later told the local news. Larry was such a kind man. Mary couldn't understand why anyone would do this to him. The 911 operators stayed on the phone with her, trying to keep her calm until emergency services arrived. Meanwhile, Lauren, in shock and grief, could barely speak. She kept repeating Larry's name, struggling to grasp the brutal reality before her. Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived. The first officer on the scene observed the sheer horror on Lauren's face. He tried to comfort her while securing the area. Paramedics quickly assessed Larry, but determined he had been dead for a while. News of Larry's death spread rapidly through the small town. Local media, including the Rochester Post-Bulletin, reported the shocking incident. Neighbors and friends gathered outside the Harrison home, exchanging whispers and offering support to Lauren and her son. The community, which had been lively with post-Super Bowl excitement just a week earlier, was now in a state of shock and mourning. The discovery of Larry Harrison's body marked the start of a tragic and intricate investigation that would uncover dark secrets and deeply affect the community. On the morning of February 8, 2015, the Rochester Police Department arrived swiftly at the Harrison home. They secured the area and attempted to comfort a shocked and distraught Lauren Harrison. Paramedics soon arrived and confirmed that Larry Harrison was deceased. Detective Jonathan Gustafson, a veteran with over 20 years on the force, and Detective Sarah Brown, known for her keen instincts, were assigned to lead the investigation. They arrived shortly after the initial officers. Detective Gustafsson was known for his methodical approach, while Detective Brown had a sharp eye for detail. The crime scene in the kitchen was horrific, with blood covering the floor, countertops, and even splattered on the walls. Larry had been stabbed multiple times, suggesting a violent struggle. The detectives observed that there were no signs of forced entry, implying that Larry might have known his attacker. Detectives Gustafsson and Brown began their investigation by examining the body. Larry had defensive wounds on his arms, indicating he had tried to fend off his attacker. The detectives then started gathering evidence, taking fingerprints, blood samples, and photographs of the scene. They also recovered the knife used in the attack, which was found near Larry's body. Forensic experts were brought in to analyze the evidence. They used tools such as luminol to detect hidden bloodstains and UV lights to find traces of bodily fluids. They also employed bloodstain pattern analysis to reconstruct the events of the attack. This technique helped them piece together what happened leading up to Larry's death. Meanwhile, the detectives interviewed Lauren, who was still in shock. At first, Lauren couldn't provide much information, but she mentioned hearing a noise in the kitchen during the night. The police also spoke with neighbors, including Mary Benedictus, who had called 911. Mary hadn't seen or heard anything unusual that night, which deepened the mystery. Local media, including the Rochester Post-Bulletin, covered the story extensively. The community was stunned, with everyone eager to find out who could have committed such a horrific act against Larry, a well-loved and respected member of their town. The police established a tip line, hoping that someone might come forward with useful information. As the investigation continued, the detectives realized they needed to act quickly. The evidence suggested that the attacker was someone close to Larry, but they needed additional proof to make an arrest. The crime scene was only the start of a complex and distressing case. The first person the police investigated was Lauren Harrison, Larry's wife. At 38 years old, Lauren worked as a nurse at the local Mayo Clinic. Known for her caring nature, Lauren was scrutinized closely by the detectives, who had to examine everyone connected to Larry. Married for over 15 years, Lauren and Larry appeared to be a happy couple. However, the investigation uncovered some troubling secrets. Lauren was having an affair with Garmin Wilson, her 18-year-old son's best friend. This relationship strained her marriage and made her a suspect in Larry's murder. Detectives Gustafsson and Brown brought Lauren in for questioning. The interview was conducted at the Rochester Police Department. Lauren was visibly nervous and upset given the situation. The detectives questioned her about her relationship with Larry and inquired whether there had been any issues in their marriage. Lauren admitted to the affair with Garmin, but insisted she still loved Larry and would never harm him. The detectives questioned her about her whereabouts on the night of the murder. She said she had been at home asleep and did not hear anything unusual until she discovered Larry's body the next morning. The detectives observed her emotional responses, which appeared genuine, but they could not eliminate her as a suspect at this stage. They also inquired about any recent arguments between Lauren and Larry. Lauren acknowledged that they had been arguing about her affair, but denied that these disputes ever became physical. Lauren's responses were consistent, but the detectives required more evidence to confirm her involvement in Larry's death. Throughout the investigation, Lauren maintained her innocence. She was cooperative, but clearly devastated by Larry's passing. They found no suspicious activity linking Lauren directly to the murder. However, the affair with Garmin Wilson remained a key point of interest. The detectives decided to question Garmin, hoping he could provide more insights into the situation. As the investigation progressed, the police recognized the need to consider other potential suspects. While Lauren's affair was a significant clue, it didn't solve the case entirely. The detectives understood they needed to dig deeper to uncover the truth behind Larry Harrison's tragic death. With Lauren's affair now known, The police shifted their focus to Garmin Wilson, the 18-year-old high school senior and part-time mechanic who was both Larry's son's best friend and Lauren's secret lover. Although Garmin was well-liked and charismatic, his involvement with Lauren placed him in a difficult position. Detectives Gustafson and Brown brought Garmin Wilson in for questioning on February 9, 2015, at the Rochester Police Department. Garmin seemed nervous, but was cooperative throughout the interview. The detectives questioned Garmin about his relationship with Lauren and its potential impact on Larry. Garmin confessed to the affair, which began a few months prior. He maintained that he had no issues with Larry and that Larry was unaware of the relationship. Garmin said he had been at home, working on a car in his garage the night of the murder. While his alibi seemed credible, the detectives needed to confirm it. They also asked Garmin about his feelings toward Larry. Garmin described Larry as a father figure whom he admired greatly. He firmly stated that he had no reason to harm Larry and was deeply upset by his death. Although Garmin's emotions seemed sincere, the detectives could not overlook the affair and its possible implications. To verify Garmin's alibi, the detectives visited his home and garage. They found the car he had mentioned working on and spoke with his parents, who confirmed that he had been home that night. Although the alibi was solid, the detectives remained vigilant. Detectives Gustafson and Brown reviewed Garmin's phone records and social media. They discovered numerous explicit messages and photos exchanged between Garmin and Lauren, but nothing indicated Garmin's involvement in the murder. The texts revealed their sexual relationship, but there were no threats or discussions about harming Larry. Garmin's responses during the interrogation were calm and consistent. He expressed genuine concern for Lauren and her son and cooperated fully with the police, which worked in his favor. Nonetheless, the detectives continued to view him as a suspect because of his close relationship with Lauren and the possible motive arising from their affair. The investigation into Garmin yielded no direct evidence connecting him to Larry's murder. His alibi was solid, and there were no incriminating messages that implicated him. Although Garmin remained a person of interest, the detectives realized they needed more concrete evidence to either confirm or eliminate his involvement. The police recognized that Garmin's affair with Lauren added complexity to the case, but also underscored the intricate relationships within the Harrison family. On February 10, 2015, a severe snowstorm hit Rochester, Minnesota. Despite the challenging conditions, the investigation pressed on. That afternoon, Detective Sarah found an important clue in an unexpected place. While re-examining the house, she decided to check Margaret Smith's bedroom more closely. Margaret, who was 64 and had mental health issues, lived with the Harrisons. Detective Brown discovered a series of hidden letters in Margaret's room. The letters were shocking and disturbing, addressed to Larry and containing explicit content. The letters revealed that Margaret had an unhealthy obsession with Larry, believing he was the reincarnation of her late husband, Edgar. This revelation dramatically shifted the focus of the investigation. Detectives Brown and Gustafson were taken aback by the content of the letters, which revealed Margaret's obsessive and delusional feelings for Larry. It became evident that her attachment to him was far from ordinary. Detectives discovered that Margaret had recently stopped taking her schizophrenia medication due to side effects, including tardive dyskinesia, which caused involuntary movements. They interviewed Lauren again, who acknowledged that her mother had always been controlling and somewhat unstable. Margaret's mental health issues had made her behavior unpredictable, and Lauren was stunned to discover the letters and her mother's obsession with Larry. Forensic experts confirmed that the letters were indeed written by Margaret. The police reviewed Margaret's medical records and found that she had stopped taking her medication about a month before Larry's murder. This led to the conclusion that her unstable mental state might have influenced her actions. The letters were a crucial breakthrough in the investigation. They offered a fresh motive and insight into the complex relationships in the Harrison family. Although the investigation was ongoing, The detectives were closer to uncovering the truth about Larry Harrison's murder and had a new primary suspect to focus on. Margaret's obsession with Larry, along with her mental health challenges, made her a prime suspect. However, more evidence was needed for an arrest. As the investigation advanced, the police were focused on Margaret Smith, Larry's 64-year-old mother-in-law. Margaret, who lived with the Harrison family and had a history of schizophrenia, had stopped her medication, which caused tardive dyskinesia and made her movements erratic. On February 12, 2015, Detectives Gustafson and Brown brought Margaret in for a more detailed interrogation. Margaret was initially calm, but grew defensive when questioned about the explicit letters she had written to Larry. She admitted to writing them, but insisted they were harmless expressions of her feelings. The detectives then probed into her relationship with Larry. Margaret described Larry as a kind and caring man, but admitted her obsession with him. She believed Larry was the reincarnation of her late husband, Edgar. This belief had led her to write the letters and act in a controlling manner towards her daughter, Lauren. Margaret's mental health issues were a key aspect of the investigation. The detectives discovered she had stopped taking her medication about a month before Larry's murder, which suggested her mental state might have influenced the crime. The detectives questioned Margaret about her activities on the night of the murder. She said she was in her room watching old episodes of Gunsmoke and hadn't heard anything unusual. However, her inconsistent answers and the disturbing content of the letters raised suspicions. Forensic experts discovered Margaret's fingerprints on the knife used in the murder. This, combined with disturbing letters and her erratic behavior, solidified her as a prime suspect. Additionally, Margaret's motive was evident: her obsessive feelings for Larry and her desire to maintain control over Lauren and her grandson. Margaret's reaction during the interrogation fluctuated between calm and agitated. She maintained that she loved Larry and would never harm him, but her statements were often confusing and inconsistent. The detectives observed her unstable behavior and persisted in questioning her to uncover the truth. The investigation uncovered that Margaret's mental health struggles and her obsession with Larry had created a dangerous scenario. Her decision to stop taking her medication and her irrational behavior raised alarms about her potential involvement in the murder. Beliefs about Larry suggested a possible motive for the murder. As the police gathered additional evidence, they recognized the importance of exploring every angle to fully understand what led to Larry's death. Margaret's mental health and history of erratic behavior were key elements in the investigation. The detectives understood the importance of a thorough examination to uncover the truth behind Larry Harrison's tragic death. On Valentine's Day, 2015, the Rochester police made a significant breakthrough in the case. After thoroughly reviewing the evidence, the police identified Margaret Smith, Larry's 64-year-old mother-in-law, as the murderer. Margaret, who lived with the Harrison family, had a history of mental health issues. Her obsession with Larry, combined with her deteriorating mental state, had led to this tragic outcome. The police reconstructed the events of the night of the murder. Margaret had confronted Larry in the kitchen, aggressively demanding sex. When Larry loudly refused, Margaret's obsession turned violent, leading to the tragic outcome. In a fit of rage, Margaret grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Larry multiple times. Despite his attempts to defend himself, Larry couldn't escape the brutal attack. Detectives Gustafson and Brown, accompanied by a team of officers, went to the Harrison home to arrest Margaret at around 6 a.m. When informed of the charges, she first seemed confused and then became hysterical, screaming, "This Valentine's Day, I give my heart to you, Larry." She insisted that his death was an accident caused by her tardive dyskinesia. The overwhelming evidence led to Margaret's arrest, which sent shockwaves through the Harrison family. Lauren and her son were left utterly devastated by the turn of events, struggling to comprehend that their mother and grandmother could commit such a horrific crime. The neighbors, who had always perceived Margaret as a frail and eccentric figure, were equally shocked. The community was in turmoil as the news of her arrest spread. Lauren and her son had a hard time accepting what had happened. They were caught between mourning Larry and their shock over Margaret's actions. While the arrest brought some answers, it left the family in deep emotional pain. The police took Margaret into custody and booked her at the local jail. Throughout the process, Margaret was erratic and often incoherent. The police made sure she received medical attention for her mental health issues. But her legal troubles were just beginning. The community, still processing Larry's murder, had mixed reactions. Some felt relief that the police had identified the killer, while others were saddened by the tragic circumstances leading to the crime. The local media, including the Rochester Post-Bulletin covered the arrest extensively, deepening the public shock and sorrow. Margaret Smith's arrest marked a pivotal moment in the investigation. The police had identified and apprehended the murderer, but the quest for justice was just beginning. The upcoming trial would cover the full extent of Margaret's actions and the profound impact on the Harrison family. Margaret Smith's trial commenced on April 20, 2016, at the Olmsted County Courthouse. The courtroom was filled with community members, including Larry Harrison's family and friends. The case garnered substantial media attention, with local outlets like the Rochester Post-Bulletin offering daily coverage. The prosecutor, David Benedictus, was known for his tough approach. He argued that Margaret's obsession with Larry and her decision to stop taking her medication led to the brutal murder. Benedictus presented the love letters as evidence of Margaret's unhealthy fixation and called on forensic experts to testify that the fingerprints on the knife matched Margaret's. Margaret's defense attorney, Linda Lou Green, was known for taking on tough cases. She argued that Margaret's mental health issues and the side effects of her medication, including tardive dyskinesia, played a significant role in the incident. Green aimed to convince the jury that the murder was not premeditated but a tragic accident. Throughout the trial, Larry's family was visibly emotional. Lauren Harrison and her son attended every day, grappling with the loss of Larry and the betrayal by Margaret. The courtroom atmosphere was tense as each side presented its case. The jury took 2 days to reach their decision. On May 5, 2016, Margaret Smith was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison, taking into account her mental health issues, while also recognizing the seriousness of her crime. The verdict brought a sense of closure, but also deep sadness for Larry's family. Lauren felt relief that justice had been served, but was heartbroken over both her husband's loss and her mother's actions. The community had mixed reactions, with some believing the sentence was fair and others feeling it was either too lenient or too harsh. Margaret was stunned by the verdict. She insisted that she never intended to kill Larry and described the murder as an accident. Her erratic behavior persisted, leading to her transfer to a facility where she could get mental health treatment while serving her sentence. The prosecution's case was compelling, emphasizing Margaret's obsession with Larry and the deliberate nature of the crime. David Benedictus received commendation for his effective presentation and securing the conviction. Conversely, Linda L. Green's defense, while empathetic, failed to sway the jury in the face of the overwhelming evidence. The end of the trial signaled a difficult closure for the Harrison family as they began to heal. Friends and neighbors rallied to support Lauren and her son. The media's extensive coverage of the case also highlighted the complex interplay between mental health issues and criminal behavior. The effects of Larry Harrison's murder and Margaret Smith's trial lingered in Rochester for years. Although the community found some solace in seeing justice done, the tragedy left a lasting mark. Over time, life began to settle into a new routine for the Harrison family and those affected by the events of February 2015. For Lauren Harrison and her son, dealing with the aftermath of Larry's murder was a tough and emotional journey. They were supported by friends, neighbors, and the community, who came together to help them through this challenging period. To find some peace and distance from the traumatic memories, Lauren chose to move out of the house where the tragedy had occurred. With the support of close friends and local volunteers, Lauren found a new home in a quieter part of Rochester. She aimed to create a fresh start for herself and her son, away from the painful memories of their previous house. In the months following the trial, Lauren dedicated herself to rebuilding her life and finding a sense of normalcy again. She returned to her job at the Mayo Clinic, where she found support from her colleagues and patients. Her strength and resilience became an inspiration to many in the community. Meanwhile, Larry's colleagues at Applebee's paid tribute to him, keeping his memory alive through various memorials and community events. In March 2015, they held a memorial service to honor Larry's life, inviting friends, customers, and members of the community. The gathering included touching speeches, music, and a photo slideshow highlighting Larry's passion for his work and his love for his family. At the same time, Margaret Smith started her sentence in a state prison. Margaret continued to receive mental health treatment to manage her condition and the effects of her medication. Despite her half-hearted attempts to seek forgiveness, she passed away from COVID-19 in May 2021 and was buried without a gravestone in the jailhouse cemetery. The Rochester community, still impacted by the events of February 2015, came together to support one another. Local organizations provided counseling services and support groups for those affected by violent crimes. The media kept covering the case, emphasizing the need for mental health awareness and support for grieving families. Over time, Lauren Harrison and her son found ways to honor Larry's kindness and generosity. They visited Larry's favorite spots in Rochester and shared memories with friends and family. Although the pain of losing him would always remain, they focused on honoring his legacy and looking towards the future with hope. Larry Harrison's murder had a profound impact on Rochester, underscoring the fragility of life and the significance of community support. The Harrison family's journey through grief and healing showcased the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tragedy. This concludes another episode of Truthful Crimes. Today's story explored how obsession and control led to a heartbreaking conclusion. Join us next time as we delve into more stories of crime and justice. Thank you for listening, and stay safe.